What's going on, beautiful people? Welcome back to another episode of Market Watch Mondays. As always, I am your host, Mike, with Mike Me Up at 2Ps. Did I just say that? Mike Me Up with 2Ps on Twitter. You can holler at me there. Follow me. Talk football, talk shit, talk Shang-Chi. I just watched that for the second time. It was dope. So, we can do whatever we want. Holler at your boy on Twitter. I'll be there and, try and holler back at you if I can. All right? So, another good weekend. I'm recording this Saturday, so I will not have seen the games that will happen tomorrow before you guys actually see this. So I wanted to go over some of my week one stuff. I want to go over some of my reactions there and some trends I want to be looking out for moving forward. So this will be probably a quicker episode because you don't want to read, too much into week one, but you definitely want to cover off some of the topics. And there are certain ones that are definitely interesting to me, myself. So, before we move on to the episode though, man, y'all know what time it is. Hit that intro. All right. I just got back from jet skiing down the river. I forget which river it was, the American River or Sacramento River, something like that. Anyways, my girlfriend got me an awesome anniversary gift for us, which is just, jet skiing down the river, man. We were out there for about 3 hours, a beautiful, beautiful day, nothing but clear skies, sun on your face, and ripping this jet ski up and down the river, man. It was awesome because the river itself is there was some areas where it's a little bit bumpy, but there were some areas just pure smoothness. It was if any of you guys snowboard or ski out there, it was like going on fresh powder. That's what it felt like. It felt like you're floating in a cloud. So that was awesome. We were out there for about 3 hours today, and I just got back, and we grabbed some food, and then just came in, and I'm here in the studio recording. Getting that content out to you guys, and out here grinding for the Wolfpack, man. That's what we're all about. So it was a really interesting week one of games, right, for the NFL, and then there's a lot of theory crafting that goes on in the off season, and everyone thinks they know what's happening when in reality none of us really know anything, right? We're kind of just making the best guess with the information that we have. But then week one comes along, real live regular season football, and it puts a lot of those narratives or a lot of those theories to the test, and that's why it's one of the most exciting weeks. We're getting real data points, right? Data points that we can use for this season. How are our players being used? How are the studs that we liked being used? So it's really important to pay attention, but it's important to also not overreact, right? Week one is not a license to throw out everything you've done in the offseason. That's not how I approach week one, at least. Week one is about taking in the new data points and reacting, but not overreacting and not underreacting. Like I always say, underreacting can be just as bad as overreacting. But overreacting could also be really bad as well. So you kind of want to try and float in that middle zone. So to me, week one is very informative, right? It's not a week where I come out and say, oh, I was super right or I was super wrong, except for in a very joking or chirping manner. But it does give you some indications of what to look out for, and if certain trends do continue to hold up, what does that mean for the players that you like and the players you didn't like? All right, so I want to go through a couple of those things right now, and don't take this as I'm right or I'm wrong. Take this as these are the things I'm taking note of that I may have been right about coming in the season, or things that I was a little bit off about, right? And the first one I want to talk about, I'm sure you guys know I want to talk about it, is Brandon Aiyuk. What the fuck happened, right? Nobody knows. Was it a hamstring injury? Was this another Kyle Shanahan shenanigans? Was it another Dante Pettis 2.0 motivation tour? Honestly, nobody knows, right? But he came out and said, look, it was hamstring related, but also a nobody was playing better than him and showing up in practice. And then, the more recent news is he said, look, fantasy managers are caring too much and in a joking manner that it wasn't that big of a deal. To me, it was a big deal because, as you guys know, I was big in on Brandon Aiyuk based on his rookie production. I was out on him as a prospect, in on him after his rookie season because of what he did. All the peripherals are there. All the numbers are there in terms of his production. And I was very excited to see what he would do in this new offense, with Trey Lance coming in down the line eventually. So it was disappointing to say the least. I had him in all my lineups, and he went out and put up 0. So it was not a good week. So what am I doing with Brandon Aiyuk? Am I panic selling? No, I'm not, because as I just said, week 1 is one singular data point. It's not one where you have to drastically completely reassess, because the reason why I'm not as scared about it being a Dante Pettis 2.0 motivation tour is like Brandon Aiyuk was actually really good in his first year as a rookie. Playing that outside alpha position, dominated as a rookie wide receiver, and showed a lot of things that we like. Guys who do that in year 1 typically don't flame out, right? Like, he had a McLaurin type of ascension. If you look at his PFF receiving grade, if you look at his efficiency metrics, like, he was up there in all aspects of the game, and he was doing it playing as the top wide receiver in the offense. But Deebo Samuel went off, right? Not Brandon Aiyuk. So to me, that was very surprising. Deebo Samuel last year was basically being used as a running back. His ADOT was atrocious. And this year, it's like kind of back up to that 8, I believe it's like 8-9 range, something like that. So he's still not really a complete like downfield threat or anything like that. And if you guys watch the game, he kind of like he took a deep one to the house. So broke a couple tackles and kind of went the distance. I still personally believe that Brandon Aiyuk is going to be the guy, but you cannot comfortably start him in your lineup this week, because we don't know how serious if that hamstring injury was serious enough to hold him to 0 production. It's either got to be pretty serious, or he's like really, really in the doghouse with Kyle Shanahan. And unfortunately, at this point, we just don't really know, right? But I think at this point, what I'm doing personally is just being in a little bit of a holding pattern. I'm not necessarily panicking and trading away my shares of Brandon Aiyuk, but I'm also not going out and trying to acquire more. One, because I have a lot already. So, I acquired him at a decent enough point of entry where I'm comfortable holding that stock. I didn't need to get in when he got to like the peak values, so I was comfortable already. So especially now, it obviously depends on what kind of price you can kind of get him for. If you can go out there and get him for a couple second round picks, I'm still in, because like I said, someone that produces like that as a rookie very rarely washes out. And I understand there's some concerns about his professionalism, like is he a pro, is he not a pro, whatever. But it's it's definitely a tough situation to monitor, but one I will definitely keep an eye on. For now, though, I'm in a holding pattern. I want to see what happens this week, because if he goes out this week and balls out, then like I'm gonna just pretend like week 1 didn't really exist, right? That was just an anomaly. Call it injury, call it teacher molesting, call it whatever you want to do, whatever you want to call it. But he's gonna be that guy going forward, in my opinion. So that's what I think about Brandon Aiyuk. Now, I wasn't like totally out on Deebo Samuel. In fact, I thought Deebo Samuel was also pretty good at his cost. I just preferred Brandon Aiyuk because he really had that alpha build and that alpha upside based on a lot of different data points, based on what he did in year 1, based on his PFF grade, based on Matt Harmon's reception perception. This guy was winning in all aspects of the field, whereas Deebo Samuel was more of like a gadget player. So is Deebo Samuel a bum? No, I went and traded for Deebo Samuel in a couple of spots this offseason, so it's good to see him blow up. But I think, if I'm betting long term, I still kind of want Brandon Aiyuk in this offense. I need a couple more data points for me to actually completely wash out my offseason analysis on him, because it was just a very, very shocking anomaly, I think, coming out of that week, right? And then the next thing is also on the same team, Trey Sermon, healthy scratch, right? Trey Sermon, healthy scratch was shocking to me. I mean, even as someone that wasn't that high on Trey Sermon, there was a lot of really smart people that said this was a very good player. Now, people say it's because he didn't offer anything on the special team side, right? And Raheem Mostert was a starting running back, and Elijah Mitchell and Jermichael Hasty actually offered something on the special team side, which is why they got to start over him. And I can buy that. But at the same time, this is the guy they traded up for, right? And we were told all offseason that was a big deal. They traded up for him, and he didn't even get to see the field, right, over a fellow 6th-round pick and another guy. And I understand there's maybe a special teams, but is special teams like that important to completely overwrite the fact that this guy was supposed to be the lead back and touted to be the lead back and then, didn't do anything? I'm concerned. I would be concerned. I have very few Trey Sermon because I usually just went wide receiver at that spot. But if I was a Trey Sermon, someone that had Trey Sermon on teams, I would be concerned because the differentiating factors between him and Brandon Aiyuk, Kyle Shanahan actually said with Brandon Aiyuk, look, it's a hamstring thing, but he also got outperformed. So that's negative for sure. When it came to Trey Sermon, he straight up just said that Elijah Mitchell and Michael Hayes just beat him out for the job, right? So, the coaches say one thing, then they act a certain way. You put two and two together, and that's when you kind of start reading the tea leaves. And to me, you can't spin this as a positive no matter what. Now, the bright side is, and not the bright side because, Raheem Mostert got injured, so, sorry to him and his family. But the bright side to Trey Sermon, fans is that Raheem Mostert is done for the season, which means now Trey Sermon should definitely be activated and on the active roster because they're going to need more than one back. But in their absence, rising star Elijah Mitchell went ham. 19 carries, 100-plus yards, and a tutty. Not much involvement in the receiving game, which is not good, right? So he's not going to be a very high floor play at all in any given week. It's probably going to be one of the more TD or boom bust plays. But, shout out to the homie Ray Garvin, who came on the show in December of 2020 and dropped Elijah Mitchell's name. And lo and behold, Elijah Mitchell goes out there and blows it up. Trey Sermon, healthy scratch. So, I tweeted about that a couple weeks ago. It was a little bit in jest, but, it's still in good fun. I mean, Ray GQ, legendary call right there, especially if Elijah Mitchell continues to produce. But what are we doing with Elijah Mitchell, right? So, obviously, if you're in redraft leagues, you probably blew like all your fab on Elijah Mitchell. Personally, Elijah Mitchell technically has the reins, but it's going to be a committee, right? Trey Sermon's going to get his chance. And if what everyone's telling me is true, Trey Sermon is a better running back than Elijah Mitchell. He just doesn't have as much juice. So they're each going to play their roles. It's going to be a committee. I think Trey Sermon will kind of still get that opportunity. If I had to choose, I would probably still choose Trey Sermon just because he has some draft capital. But he has an uphill battle to climb. So it could very well be Elijah Mitchell's job to lose. Now, in terms of compensation, if I can get out of Elijah Mitchell for a 2023 second-round pick, I think that's a pretty good compensation for someone you most likely grabbed in the fourth-round rookie picks or out the waiver wire. Now, I'm not as excited about Elijah Mitchell as I was about James Robinson, right? The reason being, James Robinson, when he came out, it was clear that he had workhorse upside. He was getting involved in the receiving game. He was getting all the touches. He was getting all the snaps, right? So that was a much more exciting opportunity, even though it was on a worse team. Whereas Elijah Mitchell, Kyle Shanahan's history, we know it's going to be a running back by committee. It's just a matter of which role he's going to get. Is he going to take over that Raheem Mostert role, or are Trey Sermon and him going to split the Raheem Mostert role, and then they're going to have someone else in on the receiving role? Like, it's just a very, very cloudy, murky atmosphere there, and not something you can really trust. So, for me, he broke a long run, obviously, right? And shout out to at J Moyer FB. Is it at J Moyer FB? J Moyer, one of the best follows on Twitter.com for running back analysis. Just one of the best. He actually broke down everything, and to him, Elijah Mitchell didn't have that impressive of a week in terms of his tackle breaking ability or anything like that. So if you look at Elijah Mitchell, he had about 1.5 yards before contact, 3.9 yards after contact, and 0.21 tackles evaded per touch. So Jay Moyer, I'm gonna read this directly from his thing. Is Elijah Mitchell the real deal? I'm not yet convinced. Most of his production was as a result of a San Francisco offensive line overpowering Detroit. Obviously, Detroit's not a very good team. On the day, he only added 25 to his carries, which means that the line created the rest of it. So a lot of that production is attributed to a really good line that is beating down a not-so-good defensive line. He struggled to consistently execute Kyle Shanahan's zone schemes or pick up extra yards through contact. While Mitchell has good bursts, he struggles to plant his foot and change direction, which is a major problem running in the 49ers' vertical cut wide zone scheme. He missed straightforward cutback opportunities on 3 zone carries, which I charted as costing him 10 yards. So the thing with Elijah Mitchell that Jay is alluding to is he's not necessarily the best fit for the San Francisco scheme, because what that scheme requires you to do is be able to have the vision and then have the ability to plant one foot and then cut. And that's not what Elijah Mitchell is doing. He's more or less taking what's given to him and letting speed take over in those opportunities, which is why he was able to rip off such a long run. Trey Sermon, on the other hand, from what I've learned from the film community, is someone that is very good at that. The problem with Trey Sermon is he doesn't have the same burst that Elijah Mitchell has. So, frankly, if you could combine Elijah Mitchell and Trey Sermon into the same player and take Elijah Mitchell's burst, put on Trey Sermon's vision and ability, you would have a very, very good running back. But alas, that's not the case. So most likely this is going to be a committee zone. So how I'm approaching the Elijah Mitchell situation, because I have a lot of Elijah Mitchell, is if I can get a second round pick 2023, that's money. And now I'm going to trade. Let's say I have him on 10 teams. I'm going to take that trade 8 to 9 out of 10 times, right? The reason why is because I think cashing out is the smart thing to do and basically crystallizing the value that you've already accrued. Because there's a chance that he goes out and then it's just like he's like a 2-down grinder. And then, some weeks Trey Sermon gets a touchdown and they're going to rotate touchdown to see who has the most production. And that's just not really a recipe for fantasy success. But why am I keeping that one share? I think about it in terms of managing like my portfolio exposure, right? So in case I'm wrong, right? In case Elijah Mitchell is the next James Robinson, in case he is the guy that can get you a first-round pick, a 2023 first or a 2023 first plus, right? I want to keep that 1 or 2 stock in him just in case I'm wrong, but I want to liquidate the rest of it because I liquidate the rest of it. I've already made 10x my returns, right? I've already made 20x my returns, 30x my returns. So I'm just free riding a couple of shares. That's what I do with a lot of risky type of assets. So to draw the parallel, in NFTs, for example, like I'm into a couple new NFT projects and I've already made like 20x, 10x, 15x on whatever I paid, right? And in those situations, I will sell off 1 or 2 of them to cover my cost base plus some like 2, 3, 4x return on capital. And then I'll keep a smaller share of that and I'll just free ride it. And if I lose that money, it sucks, but whatever, I've already taken out my gains. And if I'm wrong, and it does go to the moon, then I'm still, participating in that equity by way of what I've done. So that's how I approach fantasy as well in a lot of these situations where you don't really know which way it's going to go. It's very risky to stay all in, but you don't want to be all the way out in case you're wrong. And if he hits on if Elijah Mitchell hits on his 90th percentile outcome, then at least you had that 10% exposure to cover, right? So that's kind of how I'm approaching this situation with Elijah Mitchell, and that's how I would recommend you do it as well. That's how I approach the situation with James Robinson, except a little bit more heavily weighted and staying in because I thought he was doing things that we rarely see, and I was glad I did that because I was able to cash out much later for a lot more than a second round pick compared to those who sold really, really early, right? So it's a tricky situation for sure, but when I kind of approach these types of scenarios, that's usually what I'm thinking about, right? So Elijah Mitchell, Trey Sermon. If you can, I would still probably rather hold Trey Sermon in Dynasty over Elijah Mitchell. But if I'm being honest, like you're not that excited about either one. And if you can cash out Elijah Mitchell for a 2023 second, do it 8 to 9 times out of 10 and keep that one little share in your pocket, one little lotto ticket, keep in your pocket in case it hits the jackpot, right? So that's what I'm doing there. Other things that I noticed and I was really happy with personally was DeAndre Swift's usage, right? We were worried about this Lions offense, and it was a really bad offense, right? They, obviously accumulate a lot of points in garbage time. It's a little bit better than we thought, but I think long-term, this is still not a very good offense. They don't really have an ability to push the ball downfield. Like TJ Hawkinson and DeAndre Swift aren't really threatening you vertically, and they don't really have any other wide receivers that you really want to care about or are even afraid about. So long-term, it's still going to be a subpar offense, but DeAndre Swift had like 11 targets, right? And he was running routes on, I think, was like high 60s to low 70%. So he has like that Alvin Kamara type of usage. Now, I don't want you to take away from this that he's going to be Alvin Kamara. That's not true because, Alvin Kamara played for the Saints and Sean Payton and running backs and that offensive scheme and that offensive line and that offense in general, and Drew Brees, the ultimate screen quarterback. A lot of that contributed to Alvin Kamara. Now, DeAndre Swift doesn't have that. He has Jared Goff and he has, not Sean Payton. So I don't want you to think of that mooning scenario, but that type of usage is very good for PPR, which kind of makes him almost, I feel like, a very, very, very solid bet for top 10 to 12 production, which is a good value based on where he was going. And I've always been high. I've always been a lot higher on DeAndre Swift than other people, right? So if you look at my dynasty ranks, DeAndre Swift has always been up there, and it's because of that receiving upside and that receiving usage. On the flip side, though, people are going to say, like, why aren't you worried about Jamal Williams? Like, Jamal Williams also was very involved and also a very good value this offseason, someone that I have got a lot of in best balls. It's going to be a committee there, right? Like, DeAndre Swift's not going to be that, like, 250 carry and, like, 80 to 100, like, reception type guy. Like, he's not going to be a bell cow, but DeAndre Swift is going to lead in the higher leverage scenarios, the high leverage touches in terms of receiving upside and potentially goal line as well. So very, very encouraging usage there from DeAndre Swift. And then the other guy who I was, I guess, against the grain on in the offseason is Miles Sanders. It was great to see Miles Sanders getting more involved in the receiving game, which was exactly what we wanted him for. He had a ton of opportunity. He had 15 carries and like 4 targets as well on top of that, I believe. Let me just pull up his thing so I make sure I'm not speaking out of turn here. But yeah, Miles Sanders, I mean, people just started hating on him a lot this offseason. Yeah, so 15 rushes and 5 targets. So, look, I think in terms of what he is going to offer you, is he going to be a top 5 running back? Probably not, but that type of usage is running back one usage. Now, he didn't get a touchdown. If he got a touchdown, we'd be talking a lot. We'd be singing his praises a little bit differently. So, I understand people are tied to touchdowns and, they love all that shit. But if we're talking for real here, like so far this year, I think his usage was pretty damn impressive. We always knew he was capable of a receiver because we saw in his rookie year. He took a massive step back in his second year, and it seems like at least for now he's getting back on track. But here's the interesting part, right? Jalen Hurts, he put up a pretty good stat line for sure, but he was playing the game much different than what he was doing last year. So what do I mean by that? What I mean by that is this. Last year, Jalen Hurts had one of the highest intended air yards, which means how far the ball was traveling in the air to the receiver, right? He was like near the top in 2020, and people always harped on his completion percentage, and that wasn't really fair because Jalen Hurts was trying to complete passes way the fuck downfield, right? So that was a problem. So last year, his intended air yards was 9.5 per attempt. Okay, to put that into perspective, that was number 2 in the league, right? The only person higher than him was Joe Flacco, who barely played. So he led the league in intended air yards. So he was throwing deep and looking deep early and often and all the time. Now, 1 year later, what does it look like? Well, he now is bottom of the league in intended air yards at 3.7. So he put up a pretty good stat line, but he wasn't really pushing the ball downfield. They made the game a lot simpler for him. He was doing dinks and dunks, which is good for someone like a Miles Sanders. We were really, really worried. And last year, the most frustrating thing for me when watching the game was Miles Sanders was like always open the flat, but Jalen Hurts didn't care. He was like, let me look down here. All right, boom, like 20 yards downfield, right? And that's what he was doing all the time. It seems like the coaching is taking that into account. And, for me, I was hoping that the coaches would kind of take that into account and give him some of those easier first downs, some of those easier completions to make the game a little bit easier for him. So we harped a lot on him last year for his completion percentage. And obviously, his completion percentage was pretty damn good in this game because, again, the intention was not to go for the home run. He was dinking and dunking and picking the defense apart. Now, granted, it was the Falcons' defense, which isn't really a defense, so to speak, but it's good to see that because that is positive news for Miles Sanders. If it was just Miles Sanders going out and getting, 4 or 5 receptions and Jalen Hurts was still bombing shit down the field, like I would feel a little bit differently. But again, it's about reading all the tea leaves, reading all the data points. So the fact that Miles Sanders got involved in the receiving game and the fact that Jalen Hurts is bringing down his intended air yards, those 2 data points seems to suggest to me that Miles Sanders is potentially in for another good year and a pretty league-winning year if he gets that receiving usage and that receiving upside, which he did get as a rookie, right? And I have a lot of Miles Sanders on my team, so I would be happy to see that, and I hope that I see that. But yeah, so Miles Sanders, definitely a positive for me, and I still prefer Miles Sanders to Darrell Henderson. But I will admit that I think I was probably too easily to write off Darrell Henderson as a workhorse. I mean, because his usage was also very up there. And this Rams team does look pretty damn good with Matthew Stafford at the helm. Now, the one edge I think that Miles Sanders can have over Darrell Henderson is Miles Sanders does have more receiving upside, in my opinion. And Miles Sanders still built more like a workhorse, right? We have not seen Darrell Henderson be able to last and take that load. So I'm still curious to see how this plays out over the next few games. If he is, in fact, going to be that workhorse dude, then I'm going to have to adjust my rankings for sure. For now, though, and I think this is still a good bet to make, I would still rather have Miles Sanders rest of the season based on the trends that we're seeing. All right. So Miles Sanders versus Darrell Henderson. Personally, I'm still going with Miles Sanders, but I'm willing to admit that I was probably a little bit too low on Darrell Henderson based on what we saw in week 1 usage. Like Sony Michel and them didn't even see the field until way later on in the game. So that kind of, lends itself a lot better to Darrell Henderson truthers and potentially getting him at a value. But for me, in Dynasty, I'm still out on Darrell Henderson, right? Because this team and this management, this front office and this coach, all they've done is tell you, like, they want other guys, right? They went out and drafted Cam Akers when they had Darrell Henderson. They signed a couple of guys. Obviously, I don't think they're real threats to Darrell Henderson, but everything they do doesn't seem to suggest to me that they want Darrell Henderson to be the guy long term. So even if I have Darrell Henderson on my teams, I'm still trying to get rid of him because you're going to be trying to fade another grenade. But when the draft season comes, right? Who are they going to take in this next class? Take a Breece Hall, take an Isaiah Spiller. Then you're fucked again on Darrell Henderson. Or maybe Cam Akers comes back and maybe Achilles wasn't a career ender for him and maybe he comes back to 80% of what he will be. 80% of Cam Akers can still probably overtake Darrell Henderson. So there's just a lot of bullets you have to fade when it comes to Darrell Henderson, which is why I'm still not in for Dynasty. But if you're on him for redraft, I think this is going to be a potentially very good year if he is able to uphold that type of usage that we saw in week 1. All right, but long term, Miles Sanders over Darrell Henderson, I think that's a pretty solid yes for me. And from that perspective, I just think Miles Sanders offers a lot more on the receiving side. And, the difference is Miles Sanders didn't score a touchdown, but those will come this season. All right. And then the other thing, which I'll kind of just group all into like one bucket, is rookie wide receivers. So obviously, Rashad Bateman didn't play. It makes me extremely, extremely, extremely sad, right? But the rookie wide receivers as a whole did really well. Now, shout out to Dwayne McFarland at Dwayne McFarland on Twitter. I works for PFF. Just a really, really smart, great analyst. Crunches a lot of numbers. Thank you to him for one of these charts. But Jamar Chase, wide receiver 1. What a god. I mean, all this talk all week about how he can't catch balls, he can't see the balls because they don't have the white stripes and all this stuff. People are just chirping on him. And then all the people came out of the woodworks. All the early lappers, victory lappers, came out of the woodworks being like, see, I told you Jamar Chase can't do this. I can't do that. Well, he went out and balled the fuck out, man. He balled out like he did, put it on the line, and caught passes when it mattered. 50% in team's air yards. 27% of the targets, 94% route participation, 36% of the third and fourth down targets. I mean, finished as the wide receiver 15 overall in the week. Just a monster, man. Just a great showing for Jamar Chase. And kind of like washed all those worries away. I'm sad because I don't have much Jamar Chase. He was just going so early. He was going in like the second, third round of startup drafts, and I can't take wide receivers there personally, so I just never landed any of him. So it makes me sad, and you're definitely not gonna be able to get him now. It's you're gonna start seeing Jamar Chase Dynasty wide receiver 1 takes come out sooner rather than later. But this is not just about Jamar Chase. Devonta Smith also balled out. All the offseason talk about how he's too skinny to be good and all that stuff. He went out and put on a damn good performance, right? And I can say this: look, I was probably too low on Devonta Smith, and this is one of those things where. I like some other guys more, but Devonta Smith, by all accounts, seems like he is going to be that dude in Philadelphia, and he's going to be probably the top wide receiver there by a wide margin. He had also 95% route participation, 23% of the targets, 55% of the air yards. Again, there weren't that many air yards to go around because Jalen Hurts was rocking, 3.7 intended air yards per attempt. And but either way, that's good for him. And then we have Jalen Waddle, 93% route participation, 19% of the targets, right? 19% of the air yards. So pretty damn good showing for everyone. The one surprise, Rondale Moore obviously went out there, did pretty good too, but he had much less route participation, right? So he was only at 38% of the routes, but still 17% of the targets. And you kind of saw that usage for Rondale Moore exactly as we would have expected it. De'Ami Brown, 93% route participation, 21% of the targets. Love De'Ami Brown. And we also got the Thursday game with him. They were looking. Heineke was looking his way deep very often, right? So, the comparison that we made for De'Ami Brown coming in was Will Fuller. He's absolutely trying to fill that type of role. Now he's also on the field a lot, so which is really, really damn good. So he hasn't converted it yet, but he's definitely getting that opportunity in terms of routes, in terms of targets, and in terms of air yards. So definitely someone to monitor. And then lastly, Elijah Moore, also on the field a ton. Terrace Marshall. I think the one big surprise to me was Anthony Schwartz. 61% of the routes, 17% of the targets, 43% of the air yards. That is a pretty damn massive opportunity for him. Now, if he can kind of get those routes up and get the snap percentage up, there's going to be more and more opportunity for him. But I drafted a lot of Anthony Schwartz because his profile was decent enough for me to throw those darts in the late, third, fourth round pick of your rookie drafts. But I was not expecting any production from him. So he's going to be one that I'm going to be monitoring very, very closely in terms of what he's going to be doing going forward. Josh Palmer, a dud. Obviously. He's just, there was nothing to get excited about his profile there. I never understood the Josh Palmer hype. Maybe he'll kind of work his way more. He's only 15% of the route participation, so not good in terms of the opportunity there. But we'll kind of see how it shapes out. Kadarius Toney isn't even on this chart by Dwayne, and later on in the comments, I think he says he left them off on purpose. So but there's really not much to report on Kadarius Toney. He had one reception for negative yards, and then not involved at all. I saw him on the field maybe 7-8 times in the Thursday night football game. So yeah, not great for him, but too early to call him a bust, but definitely not an ideal start for him when we're looking at the rest of this rookie class and everyone's lighting it up. I think one thing I do want to cover though is Kyle Pitts. So Kyle Pitts went out, did not light the world on fire, did not show that he was the generational tight end yet, obviously, because he's a rookie. And, the expectations were wildly blown out of proportion. But I will say the peripherals make me very, very, very excited about Kyle Pitts. 80% of the routes, 22% of the targets as a rookie tight end, 27% of the air yards. He was not lining up in line very often. Okay, so that part of the usage that people talked about, this guy is going to be a wide receiver, is very, very true. He's lining up in the slot. He's lining up out wide. They're aligning him all over the field, and that makes me very, very excited about Kyle Pitts. And now it didn't convert into production in game one, but that's okay because the peripherals and the opportunity is what we would want it to see. And if he is as good and as talented and as athletic as everyone says that he is, and as he has proven to be up to this point in his career, eventually those two things will click, and then he will have a big game, and then it will be too late to get on Kyle Pitts. I'm not saying he'd really buy low on Kyle Pitts right now. Like anyone that drafted Kyle Pitts, drafted him super early, and just because he didn't go out and put up 100 yards on a tutty, doesn't mean they're going to be looking to dump him off. But, it doesn't hurt to start those conversations, see if you can maybe grab him for cheap, because the peripherals are absolutely there for Kyle Pitts. So if you're a Kyle Pitts manager, right, if you have him on your dynasty teams, especially on the tight end premium side, you should get pretty damn excited because it's going to be good. It's going to be a good season. And, the only bad part is Matt Ryan and the Atlanta Falcons offense had the spice of a dirty, wet napkin. I would say that, losing Julio hurt them quite a bit. But if Matt Ryan's able to come back to that, above average quarterback that he usually plays to be, then there'll be lots to be excited about. And, Kyle Pitts, Calvin Ridley, there's really no one else in town. I mean, the running backs there, like you don't care about the running backs there. The only one I care about is probably Cordero Patterson. I hope they use him more as a running back. I always said, we wish that Cordero Patterson just skipped the part where he pretended to be a wide receiver and went straight to running back, because I think he would have lit the league on fire. Just the way that he runs, the tackle breaking ability, the pure goddamn natural gift that he has been given. It would have been an exciting time for Cordero Patterson. But we get to see that in Antonio Gibson, so we can't complain. We got version 2.0 in Antonio Gibson, the God. Now, all they got to do is stop giving it to fucking J.D. McKissic on the goal line, and we're golden. But I digress. All right? So it's going to be exciting. A lot of the rookies are putting up really, really solid performances, which is what you love to see. I mean, getting off to hot starts is great. It builds confidence. It gives me confidence because they're producing earlier than I expect them to be. And, honestly, man, these last couple of years, we've just been blessed and spoiled with the amount of talent at wide receiver, especially from these young studs. So seeing them get off to an early start is extremely, extremely promising. Get yourself De'Ami Brown fucking everywhere. I said it before in the offseason, but I'm saying it again. The guy is going to click, man. One of these times, like some of those long bombs are going to start clicking. He's going to blow up for a game, and then it's going to be too late. But right now is not too late because he is not converted yet. Like a lot of those deep bombs that didn't connect, when they connect, you're going to be paying for them. For right now, if you're just like me looking at the peripherals, his routes run, his target percentage, his air yards percentage, his third and fourth down target rate, everything of that nature. Again, just go to Context Matters at Dwayne McFarland on Twitter and check out some of these charts. They're fire. They're really good data. Just a really good follow. Make sure you just follow Dwayne. Just follow Dwayne. Do yourselves a favor and follow Dwayne, because he's going to be putting out really cool stats like this, situational type of analysis for running backs and wide receivers and all that. So it's called the Utilization Report. So I'm a big fan. All right. So good start for the rookie wide receivers. Now, another guy that I have to fucking talk about. If you guys follow me, you know who it is. It is Sterling Shepard, forever underrated wide receiver. All right? Like this entire offseason, I was saying, like, yo, you guys got to get this guy. He's going to be the best value in the double-digit rounds, because all he's done in his career is show you he has points per game wide receiver 2 upside. So top 24 upside or more. And he's proven that time and time again. People don't care because Kenny Galladay's there, because he's freaking drafted Kadarius Toney, whatever. Sterling Shepard, week 1, 95% of total snaps, total and passing snaps, 95% or more. Ran a route on 93% of dropbacks. Why does that matter? That is the ultimate measure of opportunity for wide receiver and tight ends as well. Like some people just look at raw snaps and like, oh, well, he's on the field, he's getting an opportunity. But you don't want these guys on the field blocking. You want them running routes. So what that means is on 93% of the time when Daniel Jones is dropping back to throw a pass, cocking that arm back and trying to throw an interception or a long bomb, whatever he's trying to do, Sterling Shepard is running a route, which means he is an intended receiver, right? So that is an incredibly important statistic. It's really important for tight ends, because if you just look at snaps for tight ends, all you're going to get is a bunch of blocking tight ends, and that's not what we care about. We care about the ones that are actually running routes. So similar with wide receiver, obviously they don't block as much, but for Sterling Shepard, 93% of the team drops back, all right? So 25% target share, 25% target share. That was in game 1, and he was a monster again in game 2. In game 2, he had, I think, like 10 targets for 10 targets for like 10 catches, or did he drop one? He had 10 targets for 9 catches, all right, which also would have been good for a monster target share. So in terms of in terms of his current upside, Sterling Shepard is one of the few late round wide receivers that are providing you a meaningful difference in your weekly outcome. All right. He was a top 8 wide receiver in week 1 with 113 yards and a touchdown, 2.83 yards per route run, 77.6 receiving grade, and 26.3 PPR points. Wide receiver 8 finish. And the whole time, people tell me this guy has no upside. I don't understand it. I get it. The injuries is a concern, but I don't care about a wide receiver playing all 16, 17 games when I'm drafting them in the double digits. What I care about is when they play, they actually make a goddamn difference in my lineup, right? And they have that top 24 or top 12 weekly upside. Sterling Shepard, Marvin Jones, both of those guys have that, but Sterling Shepard is still like 28 years old and will probably be relevant on your dynasty teams for a lot longer. And you could have got him for like a 3rd round pick in the offseason. Now maybe he costs you a 2nd round pick, right? But depending on the team, it might still be worth it to pull the trigger. I've allowed Sterling Shepard because he's just so cheap. And in redraft especially, like I always draft Sterling Shepard because, you know, when he plays, I just put him in a lineup, and from the flex position, he can potentially give you a top 24 or a top 12 week, and that's what you care about. So Sterling Shepard, man, it's we only have 2 data points, 2 games for him, so still probably too early to take a victory lap, but everything seems to be trending in the right direction. He seems to be the leader in targets. He seems to be that safety net for Daniel Jones, right? Daniel Jones, one of the knocks against him is he has like no eyes anywhere. So if he holds on the ball too long, turns it over. So I'm sure a coaching point for him would have been to get the ball out faster. And Sterling Shepard is that underneath guy to give him that safety net. It's not Kenny Golladay. In fact, if you watch the game on Thursday, Kenny Golladay actually got big mad and went to go to the sideline, started yelling at Daniel Jones. Not a good look. Not a good look for a new wide receiver joining the team. And Kenny Golladay, a contested catch guy, not necessarily someone that's going to be wide open making easy throws for your quarterback. And with that offensive line, you can't afford to have Daniel Jones sit back there and wait for, you know, Kenny Golladay to go deep every time. So to me, absolute steal in the 12th, 13th rounds of redraft leagues this year, in the 15th, 16th rounds of dynasty leagues. Sterling Shepard, an absolute fucking steal. Potential, I don't want to say league winner because it's very hard for wide receivers to become league winners, but if there was a league winning type of wide receiver at the cost that you can get him for, Sterling Shepard is one of those guys. And, you know, 2 weeks in, double-digit targets every single week. And are these his best weeks? Maybe there are, but there's going to be plenty more of, you know, 5 to 8 target weeks for Sterling Shepard, and that's what you want in your flex position. You want guys who can get targets. You don't want guys like Mecole Hardman that maybe catches one pass for like a 50-yard bomb, you know, every other week. That's not what you want. You consistently want to get guys that are getting 6 to 8 targets into your lineups because those are the guys that can give you some boom weeks, especially in PPR formats. So Sterling Shepard in PPR is an absolute fucking gem. He's a dime. Get on him. Grab him. If you're a contender, go and get Sterling Shepard. Maybe do like Sterling Shepard a 2nd for like Sterling Shepard in the 3rd. You know, go out there and throw out those types of offers. I'm sure there's people out there that are still like, I got to sell high on Sterling Shepard before he gets injured. And, you know, if he gets injured, cool, whatever. It doesn't burn you. But let's say he plays like 75, 80% of the season. At that type of production, at that type of target volume, at that type of route run participation in terms of dropbacks, this is going to be a potential league winning opportunity. Like, you know, I very rarely will you see me go on Twitter and like have too many back and forth about like irrelevant wide receivers that are going in the double-digit rounds, because you just don't find many league winning or many relevant difference making wide receivers there year over year. But last year and the years before that, it was Marvin Jones and Sterling Shepard, and this year it's still Sterling Shepard because he's proving once again that he might be the best bargain, best bang for buck in terms of acquiring high target volume at the position. And we know the Giants are going to pass a lot because their defense fucking stinks. Their defense made Heineke look like a very, very good quarterback, and I'm not sure that he is. So I would definitely be pulling the trigger here on Sterling Shepard. And he's got that what I would call like sour taste in the mouth discount. And that's when like he's like, people feel like he's burnt them in the past. And to me, it's like, how can someone that costs so little actually burn your team? That doesn't make any sense to me. There's no like, I will never look back on one of my fantasy teams and be like, damn, dude, the guy I drafted in the fucking 15th round, that guy burned me. I'm never going to draft him again. Never. That's like never. That thought has never crossed my mind. Guys who burn you are guys you spend a lot on. And we've never had to spend a lot to acquire Sterling Shepard. And you still don't, which doesn't make any sense to me. But everyone else's loss is your gain. So get on that train and grab him for your dynasty teams. Trust me. Trust me. Trust me. Just do it. All right. So, was there anything else I wanted to cover here? I think that was pretty much everything. I guess, no, sorry. One last thing I do want to cover. Saquon Barkley. A lot of slander on the timeline these days about Saquon Barkley. You know, like yesterday I go on the timeline, people like the homie friggin' Dave Kluge goes on and says, is Saquon Barkley just a Miles Sanders with name recognition? Which offended me in multiple ways, but one of them being like I actually like Miles Sanders, so that, you know, using him as like an insult is kind of like weird to me because I think Miles Sanders is a pretty good player, which I've already covered. But the other part of it is like, even though I think Miles Sanders is good, he's not even close to being on the same level as a Saquon Barkley is. And I get it. If you started Saquon Barkley first 2 weeks, you're probably not happy. But here's what I'm happy with. His snap percentage went up. 80% snaps in week 2, right? Played against a tough Washington defensive front. Eventually, he's going to play some bad teams. He's going to play some average teams even. And he's going to get healthier and healthier. And probably, you know, when I draft Saquon Barkley this year, I was not expecting him to be a major contributor to my teams in weeks 1 to 4, right? That's just not. He coming off a major ACL injury, as godly as he is. Someone coming off such a major injury that he did, and the surgery and the reconstruction that he had to do, you just can't expect him to do that well early on. But it seems like we've fallen into a place where everyone's like, Saquon Barkley just living off his rookie year. Just living off the famous rookie year, which is total fucking bullshit, right? Like, people do not remember his sophomore year. Like, yes, he had an high ankle sprain. An injury, by the way, which probably derails most mortal human beings. They're done for the season, or at least done for at least half the season. Saquon Barkley came back in 4 fucking weeks from a high ankle sprain and proceeded to light the league on fire, right? I remember because I lost against Saquon Barkley that year, and I won with him in some leagues. He was absolutely a league-winning player down the stretch. He finished, I think, as an RB7 on a points per game basis, as RB10 overall, missing 4 games. Think about that. Think about that for a second. That is an incredible season, right? And yet, people are acting as if this guy hasn't done anything since his rookie year, which makes no sense to me, right? To me, if this is a further opportunity to acquire more Saquon Barkley on my teams, bring it on. Show me the money, because when the time comes in the playoffs and when it matters most, Saquon Barkley is going to be a difference-making weapon, right? So let's pause on the Saquon Barkley hate for a bit. You know, I don't really get it. You know, Saquon Barkley, when healthy, is one of the most special players ever, right? And is he healthy right now? No, we know that he is not healthy. Will he get healthy this year? That is the question, right? And it seems like the usage is trending towards yes. And a healthy Saquon Barkley. There's only CMC that I'm for sure taking ahead of him, right? Everyone else is up for debate, right? And that's the type of player that Saquon Barkley is. I don't want you guys to forget how special of a player he is, which is why I just want to talk about him very briefly. If you can go out there and acquire Saquon Barkley right now, do it, because there is blood in the water. And when there is blood in the water, that's when the Sharks attack. That's when the Wolves hop in and freaking destroy the sheep. That's what we have to do, guys. All right, so I'm already very heavily invested in Saquon Barkley. I don't know where else I can kind of grab him on all my contending teams. I kind of already have him there. But, you know, I'll probably throw out some more trade offers out there. But Saquon Barkley is still, in my opinion, a top 3 dynasty running back. At least at the very worst, a top 5 dynasty running back. And he is definitely not being valued as such. So make sure you guys get out there and, you know, capitalize on the fear that is currently present in our community. Make sure you guys get out there and get it done. All right. That's all I got for you guys this week. Just a little bit of week 1 recap. Some of the players I'm interested in, some of the trends I'm watching, some of the moves I'm going to be making. Week 2 coming at you, going to be another exciting week. Realistically speaking, I don't make major changes to my ranks until 3 or 4 games of the season have passed. Basically, once we're into a quarter of the season, then I can start really digging into some of the trends. Right now, we're just collecting data points. So again, don't overreact, don't underreact. Just take in the information and kind of move forward as is. That's how I like to approach the game. And you know, it's not for everyone, but it works for me. All right. And lastly, if you guys aren't doing so already, make sure you check out the Dynasty Wolfpack. Patreon.com/OurPack. All right. In there, that's how you get access to all my ranks. The Discord server, we're talking 24/7 football, we're talking theory. That's how you get access to the alpha chat, which is something that I'm checking like basically multiple times every single day. If you have questions, holler at me, tag me in there. I'll be on it. And more importantly, just a really, really great community, man, of like-minded people, other Dynasty degens like you, like me, that are trying to up their game and really try and take the Dynasty game to the next level are in there. So if you guys haven't been in there, come on over, check us out. I promise you won't regret it. It's going to be the best bang for buck that you can get all season long. All right? Until next time. Peace.